Je pense sans cesse à toi.
Hello and welcome to The Foretop. It's a roundtable discussion of today's hot button topics in food and beverage. I'm your host, Catherine Cole. Episode 35 goes live on January 1st, so we will kick off this three-course show by discussing the surprising ways in which the New Year is celebrated in Russia. Next, we'll discuss the world's best hangover foods. And finally, tongue is a classic stick-to-your-ribs dish in many cuisines, so we need to get over our squeamishness about it and discuss it. In the studios of OPB today, I'm joined by Bonnie Morales and Deena Prichep, the authors of Kachka, A Return to Russian Cooking. Hello, you two.
Hello. Hey, Catherine.
And Michael Zusman, dining critic and co-author of The Artisan Jewish Deli at Home. Welcome back, Michael.
Hi there. Great to see you.
And now let's get into our first course, Super Premium Russian New Year. Now that I've read Kachka, A Return to Russian Cooking, I know that the former Soviet states really whip it up when it comes to New Year's celebrations. They've got fictional characters like Father Frost and the Snow Maiden and a drawn-out dinner that doesn't start till 9 or 10 p.m. It sounds pretty great. So, Bonnie Morales, could you describe for us how your family celebrated, is it pronounced Novy God?
Novy God, yeah. Yeah, it's like I tell people it's literally New Year's and Christmas rolled together, but also like your 50th birthday and a quinceañera. I mean, it's like every major thing you could ever want to celebrate in life all happens on New Year's Eve, and the table is full with as much food as you can possibly bear, and it's supposed to be like, you know, the most super premium of everything, and you just go all night. You want a nap beforehand. I mean, I remember growing up, and on New Year's Eve always, like if my parents were hosting, they would get everything ready, spend all day prepping, get all of this food going, and then at like 7 o'clock they're like, okay, let's go upstairs and take a nap. And like never really questioning it because it was just that's what we did. But as I got older, I was like, wait, this doesn't happen in other families. So yeah, you get ready and everyone comes over probably around 9. And I remember one time my dad, this is not an exciting industry. He used to work in insurance as a computer programmer. But something went down with their system because of New Year's or because of the first day of the year. And we were partying and he had to like stop and go to work at like 5 a.m. And everyone
Bonnie,
was still there.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What's this I hear about vodka IVs?
Vodka IVs?
I'm just making that up. I mean, don't they go crazy drinking too?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's drinking and eating go hand in hand. And I mean, even the word zakuski, which are the little bites that you have at the beginning of the meal, literally comes from the verb zakusits, which means to bite after, and you're biting after vodka. I mean, it doesn't have to be vodka. My son partakes with the little apple juice in his shot glass and things like that. But
good parenting.
Little herring and apple juice. It's just about the sort of cadence and the drinking and the eating, and there's always toasting. You have to. The whole Russian. My dad. This is broader, not just New Year's, but my dad has really wise words when it comes to how to drink properly, and basically it goes something like never drink alone. That's a good place to start. But he means like literally like make sure you're drinking in unison. Never drink without eating, and always have something to drink for, that you have a reason.
Oh, I like that.
So I try to live by those. But New Year's is like basically that times a million. There's I mentioned it's like Christmas and New Year's. It's because during the Soviet state, they took the religious things and made them non-religious. So Jewish, Russian, Muslim, you all have a tree for New Year's Eve. And instead of Santa Claus, you have Father Frost or Ded Moroz, who comes and gives gifts for the New Year. And he brings his little granddaughter Snegurочка with him, which somehow has gotten sexual. I feel like it's like she's kind of slutty, which is weird. Like, why is Grandpa coming with his granddaughter who's dressed scantily clad? But that's like Russians tend to sort of glitz everything up that way.
Favorite niece.
She's the Snow Maiden, right?
Yes. Yeah. Snow Maiden. So yeah, it's really really fun, and to me, there's just no better way to do it.
Yeah, and we should say that while this is Father Frost and not Santa Claus, we are talking like a fat guy with a white beard in a red suit.
Oh, it's
like,
Santa.
It's been entirely co-opted. They just sort of gave everything new
I mean,
names
like,
and stripped it all away.
You can't take Christmas away from people. I mean, I'm Jewish, so I don't totally understand it, but I understand the concept of, like, little kids love Santa Claus and presents, right? You can't take that away from people. You just have to sort of, like, bend it a little
Was it a
askew.
Soviet thing? I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So prior to 1917, then there was a Santa Claus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Deena, you've reported on this for NPR, the fact that Jewish families celebrate this and don't find it strange to have a tree and a Santa Claus and all.
Yeah, it's really funny. So, like you're saying, prior to 1917, Christmas in Russia is very much like Christmas in the rest of Europe. You've got the big tree, the Tannenbaum, and everything. And the Soviet state, there was a few years where they stripped it away entirely because religion and the tree itself have been revealed as the class enemies that they are. But then, once communism has been built and life has become more glorious and all that stuff, you can relax a little bit, and they let it back in. But the state did like a shockingly good job of stripping away its heritage, whereas I feel like, in America, you may not know the evolution of Christmas, but wasn't that tree a pagan symbol at some point? That's sort of its history. When I talked to Jews from the former Soviet Union, they had no idea growing up. It was the New Year's tree. It was the yolka. They knew of Christmas, but they had no idea that their tree with its Kremlin red star on the top had anything to do with that. And so when folks immigrated, you have your New Year's tree. Why would you not put it up just because, the Jewish, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society sponsored you? And hey, look, these people are throwing perfectly good trees out for free, even before the Russian New Year. So sweet.
You're setting up your tree after Christmas. I mean, they're why are you getting rid of it after Christmas? This is when you put the tree up, people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there were some hard conversations, and some people sort of abandoned the tree, and some people are.
So what's really interesting, so Hayas is the organization that Deena's talking about. It's this refugee, Jewish refugee service that helped a lot of refugees come from the Soviet Union to America. And since it's religious-based, they really wanted to make everyone a good little Jew. And so you get sponsored. A family over here helps you out and gets settled, but then they encourage you to go to these the children go to Jewish private schools, and as a result, and for example, my brother who went to Solomon Schechter in Chicago, as a result, he came home one day saying we can't eat pork anymore. That's not good.
Whoa.
So yeah, right.
My parents. Jew, so it doesn't matter.
My parents came over. I mean, in Russia, you eat pork because what else are you going to eat? I mean, my mom's.
Oh, that's so interesting.
My mom's grandfather was a kosher butcher in town, so he had access to veal, and her family would eat more. But my dad said they eat pork because what else are you going to eat? And they come here and suddenly realize, wait, we've been doing this wrong this whole time. We're not supposed to be eating pork because my little son is now telling me, guilt tripping me into it. So we stopped eating pork until my brother and I were older and were bacon is God, and so they sort of slowly brought it back into their lives. And now, I mean, my dad's eating fatback all the time with vodka. So anyway, it's that was part of it too, is being told, guys, you really can't put that tree up. It's totally taken a different way here. It's a Christian thing, and that's when you realize oh wait, maybe we shouldn't do that. And so some my family stopped. We didn't do the New Year's tree here in the States, but I know my cousin still puts one up every year.
Yeah, and I know in Israel, I think it's also been a big point of contention because they have a huge population of Jews from the former Soviet Union, and initially they abandoned it, and there's been a move in recent years to sort of reclaim it and to say, look, this was our tradition. And
right.
Yeah, I talked with some people who said, this is a sweet childhood memory, and life in the Soviet Union was pretty rough, and this was something it is, like you're saying, it is this great day where you get your chocolates, you get your oranges, you get that special stuff you only get. And I want that memory. And then I talked to other people who said, look, the day I tied a red handkerchief around my neck and became a pioneer, that was a great day too. I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get back to this interesting discussion about New Year because, first of all, I don't know who's writing. I think it was Deena writing Bonnie's recollections, but I love just the witty tone of your book, and I love how your book, it's not just a Russian cookbook, but it's about being in a Russian Jewish family.
And you're talking about whose voice is it or whatever, and really right, just to go kind of to see what's going on, how the hot dog is made. There was so much back and forth and so much writing on top of each other's writing that I literally could not tell you if any one sentence was purely mine or hers, and that was part of one of the best parts of doing it, from my perspective at least.
Yeah, no, I was just telling somebody the other night as well, because we would get together once a week, which like I feel like I still miss,
I miss
now.
it.
You know? And we would sort of talk it over, and I'd make notes, and sometimes I would take these notes and come up with a first pass, and sometimes Bonnie would come up with a first pass. And my family is from Russia, from Belarus and Ukraine, but they all came over before the revolution, and so the food is a little different, but at the same time, it was like a nice connection because some of it is, there are some differences, but there are some through lines.
Yeah.
I just want to know about these tables groaning full of food.
Yeah.
I remember
to Kachka.
before Kachka opened, you invited me over graciously, and there was like a refrigerator full of cold vodka and
Freezer.
Freezer. That's right. And the table, I mean, it was. So it seems like your family, any excuse to have a huge table full of food is good.
Absolutely. And so when my parents immigrated in 80, I was born the year after, but then, there was a long period of time where they stopped allowing people out of the country. And so I didn't see any. My parents thought that they were never going to see their grandparents or their parents or cousins and all that. And then in 88, 89, people started coming over again. And so we had like a reason to celebrate. It felt like every week I felt like I met a new third cousin or whatever. And that was reason to celebrate. And so it felt like almost every weekend was what we had and you saw, Michael, was just par for the course. I feel like my mother must have been exhausted. Like,
Catherine,
I don't
it was
understand
insane.
how she could possibly make all that food all the time.
Like a banquet, but their family. I mean, it's like, what the hell is going on here? And there weren't that many people. There was like maybe 8 people on a table that could have fed 23.
We like to murder you with food.
I appreciate it.
My mother, it would absolutely she would be embarrassed if something actually ran out. That is like the worst thing that a good Russian host could possibly do is allow something to run out. You might have to eat it for a week later and like be sick of it or whatever, or give it out as leftovers. But the worst thing you could possibly do is run out of something.
Okay, well, really quickly, it's too late this year because this episode will run January 1st. But for
Happy New
next
Year,
year's
everyone.
for next year's New Year's celebration, if I want to do it Russian style, what do I need to have on my table? Mandarin oranges? Why mandarin oranges?
They were hard to come by. They are a symbol of like luck and prosperity in Asian culture. So I'm
That's
sure there's
really
some,
Chinese. That's weird.
So
yeah.
I mean, there is if you look at a map, I mean, there is some borders there that are shared. There is a lot truth. So I'm not exactly sure if it comes from Asian influences or not, but there is that same sort of feeling of it being precious and hard to come by during the Soviet Union. So that might be part of it too. But yeah, mandarin oranges given out as gifts is a big deal. You want as much food as you could possibly bear on that table groaning spread. Your vodka should be nice and cold, frozen. It's not for masking purposes. It's really because it gives it this like richer texture. I think that's great. I recommend because we're all not as good at drinking as the Russians, to find the smallest shot glasses you possibly can. There are these 1 ounce shooters that are half the volume of a standard shot glass, so it tricks people into feeling like they're taking full shots, but they're actually only taking half shots. So there are those sorts of things that are my personal recommendations. My dad would think it's important, and I think, to make sure everyone is toasting and sharing it together. And don't cocktail first. You'll pass out in the salad. There's a Russian expression: the weak man passes out in his salad, and the strong man passes out in his dessert. Basically, you're going to get yours regardless.
You're going down.
But you want to be smart about it and last to the end. And so make sure you're doing it together in unison. Don't go drinking on your own. Make sure you always have a toast and that you're drinking to something.
Oh, I love that. Well, I think this is a great segue to our second course, which is hangover cooking all over the world. Now that the New Year's festivities are over, I think we need to turn to Deena Prichep, whose journalistic work often focuses on culinary traditions. And Deena, I feel like I've seen a few articles by you about hangover foods from different cultures. So what are some of your favorites?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm not one to be all that hungover.
Deena's
but
always
I feel like
raging.
I've done this story a few
know.
times. And also at the same time, these are traditions and not science. Beyond that, get some hydration in you, like get some actual food in you. So it seems like I've come across a whole lot of soups, the sort of menudo tripe soup that you see. which,
That's
I've not eaten it.
That's the only. Actually, that's like before I saw the notes for the show. That's the only one I knew because I had a buddy in college who. I might have drank a little in college, and my buddy Louis was a Chicano from L.A. and one kind of hungover morning he said, "Hey, Mike, you want to go get some menudo?" And it's like, "What's that?" And he didn't tell me until we got there,
And Deena did make a face when she said the word tripe, I noticed.
Is it any worse than anything else? There's also, I think, a Korean hangover soup that has some cubes of blood in it.
I'm good with
like that.
I'm good with blood
that.
pudding. But
Yeah, it'll replace some of those minerals, I'm sure.
The Russian, obviously I'm partial, but we do sauerkraut juice.
Yeah.
That is considered to be the cure. Any pickle juice, but sauerkraut specifically, it's full of probiotics and electrolytes. So there are some scientific reasons behind it, but I think it's also delicious.
Yeah, a bunch of years ago I had done a story about kvass, which is it's a
Love
fermented
that
drink.
stuff.
Yeah, it's a lightly fermented.
There's a recipe for some in our book.
There is a recipe in our book.
Coincidentally.
Shameless plug. Exactly, a fermented sort of a bread. Lightly fermented soda, if you will. But there are also other kvasses, and when I was doing this story, a woman offered me a lettuce kvass.
Yeah.
And it was very nice because it had some of that tang, but it wasn't that sharp, and it had just a delicacy and a lightness because it is lettuce, and she said that was their go-to hangover cure.
Yeah, it's if you think about the difference between a kvass and a sauerkraut juice, they're like kissing cousins. So you're having two fermented vegetable-based liquids. Just, one's maybe a little bit sweeter and one's more sour, but essentially...
Yeah, and I know she called it a lettuce kvass, and I've also seen there's a difference between what is it? It's not Russell and a kvass. Where's the line there?
Russell is pickle juice.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, like I said, kissing cousins.
How much do you...
Go ahead.
How much of that do you do?
As much as you can stand, I suppose. Okay, total aside, but I swear this works. My father, who's of some age, has awful heartburn. Has had it for years, has tried everything, taken actual prescription medication, has tried doing papaya enzymes, which are supposed to be very helpful for that, and everything in between. Anyway, unrelated, I decided to do a serious cleanse where I did a full paleo thing, and my mom always, whenever I say I'm going on a diet, she goes along for the ride. And so my dad, unfortunately, regardless of what he wants, because he doesn't even know how to open the refrigerator, he has to do whatever my mother wants to do. So she's like, I want to do this too. So we did this together, and on paleo you end up doing a lot of sauerkraut for breakfast. And so we started doing sauerkraut. They make their own all the time anyway. So we started eating sauerkraut for breakfast. And my dad was like, I haven't had heartburn since we started this diet. Wow. And anyway, we reintroduced everything else back in, but he kept eating sauerkraut for breakfast. And he, ever since then, does not have heartburn.
Wow.
So it is really a miracle food.
There is science.
I know. Besides just for those
Anecdotal
hangovers,
science.
You don't need to have a hangover. It's still good to have in the morning.
Well, I did read about pickle juice that it has potassium in it, and drinking removes the potassium from your body. So it's basically like drinking Gatorade or something. I mean, I feel like pickle juice, that's like a Jewish deli food to me. I mean...
it can't be any worse than bone broth.
Don't get me started.
Me neither. I'm like the ultimate skeptic. It's like, okay, whatever. But plus, I don't know, man. Trying to eat sauerkraut in the morning.
Try it. I swear. Maybe you just had, again, plug for the book. We have a great sauerkraut recipe. So maybe you've just had bad sauerkraut.
Maybe. It goes well with eggs.
Really?
It really does.
Okay.
I love sauteing.
Anything.
So try if sauerkraut's too aggressive for you, if you saute it, you get, first of all, that a little bit of caramelization from the sugars. So you get a little bit of browning, right? And then, which, cabbage is always good with a little bit of char. And it also mellows out some of that acidity. And so if you're not into sauerkraut raw, you can try sauteing it, and you might be more into it. And then it's with scrambled eggs, a little toast.
Yeah.
You just gave me an idea for a Reuben sandwich omelet.
Well, also think of the... people have kimchi fried rice topped with a fried egg.
Yeah,
and
that's delicious.
It's not that far off.
Yeah.
It's just the morning part. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Dinner for breakfast.
Whatever.
Deena, I did read something that you wrote about the Italian-American hangover cure, which is spaghetti carbonara. Is that right?
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of, bacon and eggs, it's not. It is just kind of a variation of that when you think about it. And that was one that surprised me, but it does seem a lot of folks have talked about it where as long as you can boil water, you can basically kind of make it up quick and you get a nice little quick emulsified sauce with that hot pasta water. You get, whether you're using, sometimes they use bacon, sometimes they use some sort of pancetta or guanciale, which, is really not that different from your bacon and eggs.
And a good amount of starches, just like pasta, I feel like, yeah.
And also salt.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been hungover, unfortunately, I suppose.
Come on.
So your stomach can't handle very much. So the idea of just like having something like pasta, something that's like starchy and really, really plain, is actually phenomenal. Like that to me sounds like something I could actually bear. Yeah.
Well, should we take a little break and eat something wonderful? Michael brought something in. Can you tell us what this is as I unwrap it, Michael?
Gianduioso. These are, I was in Italy for the Truffle Festival about a month ago, and I went to a little town, Bra, which is known for the slow food movement, actually, and found a tiny little confiteria where they make their own Gianduioso, which are chocolate hazelnut candies, and they're really good. And this is great because I've had these sitting around my house.
Thank you.
Just waiting for the right people to give them to, and I found them today.
Yay. Oh, yeah, no, delicious.
Cheers. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
So they come like this. They're sort of an elongated triangle, I guess.
They smell delicious. I haven't even opened the wrapper yet.
Yeah, so they make them. They make all kinds of cool stuff at this place. I was telling somebody they also make their own chestnut cream, which is crema di marrone. I'm sure somebody will correct that.
You're just making that up.
I'm not. And the funny thing is, somebody on Facebook showed a picture of a chestnut, local guy, and says, the first person who can guess what this is and what I'm going to do with it wins something. I didn't know what the hell it is. And so I said, it's a chestnut, and then took a picture of the jar of the stuff I got in Italy. And of course I won. It's like, yeah. And he said, how did you know? I said, oh, I had no idea. I just had this sitting around my house. I took a picture of it to be a big shot. So anyway, you guys tried these already?
Phenomenal. Yeah. I love gianduia. That chocolate and hazelnuts just, we're born to be together.
Mm-hmm. I almost hate to change the subject, but I think we need to move on to our third course with this delicious chocolate in our mouth. For our third course, we are going to speak about tongue. If you are still battling a hangover after our discussion of hangover foods, maybe you need to go to a Jewish deli and order up some tongue. That is, if you can handle the thought of eating it. Michael Zusman, many of us are accustomed to eating organ meat like liver, but cannot wrap our minds around tongue. Why is it considered a delicacy?
Because it's delicious, and the texture is, I've seen it described as velvety. I'd go silky. If you can think of a regular piece of beef and then consider that it's much softer without being mushy.
Picture that beef and it's licking you. That's what it feels like. In a good way.
It's wonderful. And
sorry, Deena.
It's rooted for Jews. It's the tradition of full utilization of the animal. Before that was cool. But, Jews were poor. Russian Jews were very poor. And you would eat what you could get. And the expensive meats, those went to...
My dad used to have to eat, speaking of inexpensive meats, cow udder at least once a week. That was something that they had to have in their family. Because,
never tried.
So if you think
udder.
Tongue is
That's
the bottom of the
udder
barrel.
White meat. Anyway, my mom started making it. My dad came from, he was dirt poor growing up. And so his mom made it. Threw it into the blue pot at the back of the stove, which she had going always. But my mom, to keep my dad happy, would make tongue every so often, and we had it. And I always loved the stuff. I didn't mind the fact that when she would bring the package from Safeway or wherever the hell she got it, it looks like a tongue. It's not very attractive, which is why people are repelled by it if you haven't eaten it first. So I think the idea for people listening who've never had tongue, first get drunk on vodka and have somebody else cook it and then cut it up for you so you don't actually have that image in your mind, and then just try the tongue on its own merits.
Well, actually, I think a lot of people have and don't realize it because lengua tacos are tongue.
I love that. Call it something in a foreign language, and people, that's lengua. That sounds good.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that that's what lengua is.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Anyway,
so we have tongue on the menu all the time because it is important to the culture and the cuisine, and it's a pretty common conversation with a server where the server will be like, you should try it even if you think you don't like tongue. I think you'll like it, and it is 9 times out of 10, probably even more than that, success rate. So, I think that people just need to give it a chance.
And just to be clear, I mean, one of the things that's important as opposed to some organ meats, it doesn't have that weird minerally bloody taste.
It's not an organ.
All.
It's a muscle. Right?
Yeah. It is just this that's what I tell people all the time. It's not an organ. It's just like having tenderloin. It's just another muscle. Guys, newsflash, they're all animal muscles. All of them.
But it's the same psychological leap for people, I think, as ordering an organ meat.
It is. No, it totally is. And again, the look of a beef tongue is, I mean, let's face it, it's just like...
When I was a kid, so my mom would just boil it. Boil the dickens out of it.
Mine too.
And just have it with mashed potatoes and a pickle, and that is delicious. But as a kid, she wouldn't do anything. She'd take the skin off. But you still, even though you take the skin off, and I'm sorry if this is too graphic, you still see the little bumps from taste buds. Mm-hmm. And that was when I was a kid. I was like,
Catherine is recoiling. I just want everybody to know that Catherine is sitting here recoiling.
Trying to remain objective.
She'd cut it up and put it on the plates, and she knew that she could give me whatever as long as it wasn't towards the front, third, where the taste buds were most pronounced. So maybe that's it. Maybe just go to the back.
But that's
back
weird because I remember a couple New York deli trips where, and maybe this is still true, where you could either order tongue, just tongue, or tip tongue, because the theory is the front part is the more tender. Yeah. Less fatty, not
it's
any
more
weird
clean.
things.
There's none of the weird sort of collagen stuff that you get in the back, which can be. I was very particular as a child. It was the center third, where it wasn't weird and funky, and it wasn't the tip, and that to me is most super premium tongue.
Did your mom ever corn the tongue? Make corned beef?
Yeah, I wish she did.
My mom did that once in a while. I mean, mostly I remember boiled tongue, but once in a while she would do corn tongue, which, basically it's the same thing you would do with brisket. Same pickling spices, just simmer the meat in that. And that's heaven. I haven't seen it anywhere.
If you think that, because also beef tongue is very beefy, I would say if you can find veal tongue, I know that sounds more exotic, but it actually is more delicate and a more delicate flavor.
It's a baby's tongue.
It is, yes, even better.
Stop, Catherine. Nobody's ever going to try it if you say that.
Yeah, I mean, and I grew up eating tongue, and we never had a boiled whole tongue as far as I can remember, but it was just a common deli meat. We would get it sliced. And it, I don't think I liked liver because of that mineral sort of taste or, that quality that liver has, but tongue... I think it is about familiarity because, I say this now as a pescatarian, I don't see tongue as any worse than, a muscle that's cut out of a flank or a leg. They're all parts of animals, and especially getting it as cold cuts as a kid from the deli, that was just one of the things on the tray, and it wasn't any different from
But
the corned beef.
Deena, as a writer, doesn't the redundancies bother you? You're putting tongue on your tongue. I don't know what.
I want to interject because I actually never thought about it that way before until I was in New Orleans for doing a kachka dinner, and I met the chef of Margie's Grill, which is a newer restaurant there. And by the way, phenomenal if you're in New Orleans.
Writing that one down for my next New Orleans.
And they've traveled to Southeast Asia a lot, and so they're influenced by that, and sort of a mashup of barbecue, smoking, and then Southeast Asian flavors. And he had a preparation of tongue in Southeast Asia because there it's hot. You don't do as much cooking. You don't do low and slow like you do in sort of Northern Europe. And so there he had raw tongue or gently seared like a steak. So he did a preparation for us when we ate there where he had seared it on the out, like medium rare, or even I think it was even rare. So it had the Maillard on the outside, but it was essentially done like a tenderloin. And it does have a toughness to it, but because it's tongue, it has this like silkiness that is more extreme when it's in that rare form than it does when it's braised.
And so great.
That is super interesting. It's something that I personally had never seen before and totally changed my view. And I had that like feeling of it being like the tongue. That's when I was like, this feels like there's a tongue in my mouth. Like it's licking me. But in like this really beautiful, really luscious way.
I had a new one. I pure coincidence. So I celebrated Thanksgiving in Miami last week, where, for those who aren't familiar with Miami, lots of Cuban traditions, Cuban restaurants. So I took my daughter to this. It's called Puerto Sagua. It's a mainstay. It's right on Collins Avenue, which is the main drag.
We were just in Miami too. We almost went there.
Yeah, and so we stopped there for lunch, and on the menu is lengua estofada, stewed tongue. It was stewed in a kind of sweet tomato sauce. It was. I wasn't even that hungry. It was like 11:30. But it was so tender and so delicious. They served 2 huge chunks of tongue. It's like, oh, wow, this is almost gone. But I think I got through like all but one bite. It was so fantastic. Who knows? So like it's part of the Cuban tradition too.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Apparently, it's, Michael, you were saying it was part of just using the whole animal back in the day. But now apparently it's a delicacy, and so many cuisines sort of cherish the tongue that it's getting to be expensive, is my understanding. And apparently Katz's Delicatessen in New York is one of the most famous places to get tongue. And so I just looked up how much it costs, and it's $32 a pound.
Oh, New York.
Whoa.
That's New York.
I mean, but that's got to be more than just a standard cut of meat.
Well, my buddy Josh Marcus, I'll put another plug in. It's Josh's Deli in Surfside, which is one of the little communities up northern part of Miami Beach. And he said he runs a little Jewish deli, Twisted, there, and he's said that the price of tongue has gone up a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that price increase here. I mean, we use a local farm for it. Carmen Ranch, and it's so far, I have not seen any jumps, and that's something that, I mean, things change on the menu, but beef tongue, we confit it, and that's something, the set changes, but the protein and how we cook it doesn't, and so that's something I can say within the last 3.5 years since we've been open, we haven't really seen any.
You use it on the stroganoff, right? Do you use it on anything else?
We don't always have stroganoff on. So the reason the stroganoff comes on and off is sometimes we just have so much trim accumulating, and so we'll put stroganoff on because use the trim pieces. But it's actually a hot app for us. That's the main purpose. So we confit it and put it on the flat top to crisp the top and the bottom. So it's really meltingly tender in the center and crispy on the outside. And then right now we're doing a Chicago dog set. We're about to change it out.
Oh, yeah.
Chicago dog.
I noticed on your menu, it described it as tasting like a Chicago hot dog.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love Chicago dogs, and I'm from Chicago, and then the Cubs sort of had a chance at the World Series, maybe, possibly.
Don't be greedy.
I know. But so anyway, it inspired me, and we did it. We have like a beer battered sport pepper on top, and there's celery salt, and we made a relish for it that's like the neon green relish that you have, but just not neon. I couldn't bear to put food coloring in my food. So anyway, those are sort of the ideas.
That's on the menu?
Right now, yeah.
Can I come in tonight?
It's about to come out.
I want to come in tonight.
Michael, you can always come in.
It's so crowded. Nobody goes there anymore.
Oh,
well, it sounds like if our listeners want to be introduced to tongue, they should go to Kachka in Portland. And it sounds like...
Nice plug. Thank
you.
Or they can pay a lot more and go to Katz's.
Yeah.
Or they can pick up the cookbook.
That's insane.
Or they can pick up the cookbook.
We have 2 recipes for tongue in the book. There's a veal tongue cold appetizer and then a beef tongue preparation as well for hots. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I think it's time to move on to dessert. This is the course in which we each share something foodie or drinky we have been enjoying this week. My dessert is actually an after-dinner delight. It's my mom's favorite after dinner drink, but I thought of it because of the former Soviet flavor of today's program. It's I'm going to probably pronounce it wrong. Becherovka Karlovarska. Did I get that right?
Bekarovka?
Bekarovka. My mother does pronounce it right because she drinks it all the time. It's an
Maybe she pronounces it wrong because she drinks it all the time. Right? Get a little loose.
Anyway, it's an herbal liqueur from a former Eastern Bloc nation, now known as the Czech Republic. Supposedly, only 2 people in the world know the recipe for this wonderful liqueur. It's still hand produced in small batches, so not every bottle tastes the same. It comes in a nice little green bottle, and I think it's supposed to have ginger in it, and that's why it's such a great digestif to have after dinner because it helps you digest your food. So everyone try some Bekarovka tonight.
It's delicious.
Did you bring some dessert, Bonnie?
I did. This chocolate actually reminded me, it's not literally this week, but a couple weeks ago, I happened upon a chocolate from that was imported from Latvia maybe it was Lithuania. It was a Baltic country where there are tons of mushrooms. And it was this beautiful chocolate bar that had porcinis infused into it.
Wow.
What?
And I couldn't stop eating it. I got so excited that I instantaneously texted my sous chefs and my CDC and was like, I want to make a molten chocolate cake with porcinis in it. I just want all of this. So anyway, I just can't stop thinking about this chocolate porcini, or this porcini chocolate bar has been haunting me for weeks now.
Wow, that sounds so good.
It is so good.
It shouldn't even be legal. I
know, it's insane.
Wow.
But anyway, so coming to a kachka dessert soon, I'm sure. It's been in my brain, so.
You just blew my mind. Deena, what did you bring for us?
Well, this week we just got back from Europe, so I've been on sort of an all nachos all the time, sort of Mexican, the usual sort of post-continental craving for chili and cilantro. No?
I've never.
Just me?
Sounds good.
Yeah, and then the other thing I had brought is when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today, I've been trying to dig up this quote about how in Jewish food and culture that just historically, in the days of the ancient temple in Jerusalem, there were these 3 pilgrimage holidays every year where people would come to the temple to worship and celebrate the holidays, and that after the destruction of the temple, there's a sociologist who sort of theorized that the 3 meals of the day have sort of taken the place of those 3 pilgrimage holidays. But I haven't been able to dig this up, so if anyone hears this and can remember or has come across this, let me know.
Yeah, why are there 3 meals?
And they, and especially, at many
Not
tables.
If you're a hobbit.
Yes, good point. But at many tables, and especially a Jewish table, they are fairly religious experiences.
Yeah. Michael, what did you bring for us?
Well, I did find a quote, since I knew we were talking about, and that we were talking about New Year's and celebration. So what I thought about is this quote that's actually in my book that I stumbled on then, that really encapsulates the Jewish attitude about celebration and food. And so it goes like this: "As it is written, let all who are hungry come and eat. Nobody likes to dance on an empty stomach. If you give us borscht, fine. If not, I'll take knishes, or kreplach, kugel, or dumplings. Blintzes and cheese will suit me too. Make anything you like, and the more the better, but do it quickly." That's Shalom Aleichem, great Jewish writer and storyteller.
That's a wonderful way to wrap up the show. Thank you. Well, a special thanks to all of you panelists. Michael Zusman, dining critic and co-author of The Artisan Jewish Deli at Home. Deena Prichep, you are the co-author of Kachka, A Return to Russian Cooking, but also a journalist who contributes frequently to NPR, so everyone should go to the NPR website and Google your name. And Bonnie Morales, chef and owner of Kachka Russian restaurant here in Portland, where everyone should come and taste tongue for the first time.
Please do.
Today's episode was recorded in the high-fiber, protein-packed city of Portland, Oregon, in the studios of OPB. You can read all about us on the OPB website. Our producer is Alex Ward. Special thanks to OPB sound supervisor Stephen Cray. And our theme music was performed by the incomparable wine importer Kermit Lynch. If you like our James Beard Award-winning show, please help us out. Rate us on iTunes, subscribe to The Four Top on your favorite podcast app, and please tell your friends about us. You can tweet us at @4top, all one word, or visit our Facebook page and post your thoughts about the show. And like our page too, please. We would love to hear from you. Bye-bye now.
Nuit blanche blanche, nuit blanche, nuit blanche. Oh,